Welcome to the Mesa City Council study session for July 8th, 2025. Councilmember Heredia and Goforth are unable to attend and they are excused from this meeting. Council, item 1 is to review the agenda for tonight's council meeting. I know we went over this prior. Are there any questions for the meeting coming up tonight? That Ms. Pillsbury.
Yeah, I just would like I just lost the number, 5C taken off consent.
Thank you. Mr. Christopher noted that. Anything else, council? Okay. With that, we'll move over to item 2A and have a presentation on the proposed audit plan for fiscal year 25-26. Mr. Listiano, the mic is yours.
He's not used to older people being able to do that.
I'm only here once a year. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. You got this.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I'm here to present the City Auditor's proposed audit plan for the next fiscal year. A little bit of an agenda. I'm going to go over the current work in progress for us, our audits planned for next year, the follow-up reviews that are due in next year, and then the other activities that our department does. So currently, the projects we have in progress are a citywide take-home vehicle audit, a citywide special pay program, the ASU building across the street, the post-construction cost review of that, and then the Mesa Arts Center revenues audit. We also are working on a police department mental health services support team audit, the human resources, hiring and recruitment practices, and the city attorney's VOCA program, which is the Victims of Crime Act program, or a Victims Assistance Program. These are the audits we have planned for next year. The ones with the asterisks are carried over from the previous year. The first audit is the city clerk's office. It's the public records request, and it's to evaluate the effectiveness of the public records request process administered by the city clerk's office to comply with applicable policies, statutes, and other requirements. And just a note for this one, we list the city clerk's office here, but they're not always the responsible party. They help administer the program, but other departments have responsibilities, so it'll sort of be a citywide audit except for the police department as they have their own process, so it'll be focused on all the other city departments. The next audit is the Water Resources Annual Ordering and Reporting, and this is to review the processes and procedures in place for water resources, annual water ordering and reporting process to ensure compliance with applicable policy, statutes, other requirements, and identify any potential efficiencies with the ordering and reporting process. Next audit is the Police Department's Off-Duty Employment Program. This is to determine whether internal controls over off-duty employment are in place and operating effectively to ensure compliance with applicable policies and are adequate to monitor the program. The facilities management audit will be a work order audit, and we'll be looking at the effectiveness of the work order management process, including assessing the life cycle of a work order from start to finish, ensuring proper documentation, timely completion, and compliance with city and department policies and procedures. And then our last audit is the code compliance case management audit. And we'll be determining if effective controls are in place to ensure case management activities are performed consistently in accordance with applicable policies, statutes, ordinances, and other requirements. So those are the audits. For follow-up reviews, we have, we did an IGA cost recovery audit last year, so we'll be following up on our recommendations from that audit. A Department of Innovation and Technology Software and Application Asset Management audit. This will be a second follow-up. a Department of Innovation and Technology remote access audit, the DOIT cybersecurity audit, the Police Department's criminal investigations case management audit, and the Transportation Department's street maintenance audit. Then other activities that our department does do, we have a cash handling audit. We do that every 2 years. We used to do that every year, but as cash has become less prominent, we do it less, but we still like to go do that audit. And we do it over the 2 years. We just report on it every 2 years instead of every year as we had in the past. The next one will be due in fiscal year 2027. We do an annual credit card security review audit, which is required by the credit card issuers to make sure that we're securing our credit card information. There's two pieces to this. There's an operational piece and a technical piece. Department of Innovation and Technology handles the technical piece, but we do the operational piece, which is going out to departments, making sure they're completing their training, inspecting the devices, and following the city's policies and procedures. We also manage the city's fraud and ethics hotline, and we conduct investigations, and when we get reports through that, speakupmesa.com. We are also available for consulting if departments have questions on policies and procedures or putting controls in place. Other projects we can assist. And then lastly, any unscheduled audits, if requested by the city manager or city council, we'll put those onto our plan as well. That is the audit plan.
Well, it's a pretty brief audit there, Joe. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Ms. Spilsbury.
Are we, if a council member asks for an audit to be done, is that something that has to be voted on? Do we have to have a majority? Can one person ask for something to be done, and are we made aware of that? Just curious, I don't really know what the process for that is.
Sure. Mayor, Councilmember Spilsbury. It depends. So I'm not going to go do a full-blown audit at the request of a council member. I would want some consensus from the council, so we would bring it to the council. However, I am available if you have questions, like something you want me to research or that can be audit related or something like that. I can do that. But I think if we're going to do a full-blown audit, that should come back to the council, at least to get direction.
Okay, so I'm guessing there hasn't been a request recently that I'm aware of?
I have not received any that I can recall since I've been here.
I know we've given some suggestions and stuff like that.
Right,
in
so
the
I
past.
will send out a request in the beginning or the end of the last fiscal year, right, as I'm prepping this to see if you guys have any ideas. And I get requests and I kind of put them together and we have a risk-based audit approach and, we'll add them to the plan if we think it's something, not worthy of an audit, but something that we can manage and
Okay.
fit into our plan.
Thank you.
Council, Mr. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Licitano, I'm curious, the audits I'm familiar with are typically financial. So I'm assuming from what I see here that you do financial, procedural, perhaps forensic. Can you describe for me the types of audits? Because I see some of these things look like you're looking for efficiency of procedure as opposed to financial accountability.
Mayor, Councilmember Adams, we can do financial audits. We typically do not. We mostly do what we would call operational or performance audits. And it's looking at, a lot of times, policies and procedures, controls, and making sure those are in place. The reason why we typically don't do financial audits is, again, we take a risk-based approach to our audits. We have external auditors that come in and examine our finances. They're pretty thorough. It would be kind of an overlap if we did that. We can do little areas, right? Or I'll go look, like we're doing an audit at the MAC right now of their revenues, right? We look at that and their controls in place. And we do a financial piece to it, but it's more focusing on the policies and procedures.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Council? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we'll move on to item 2B, a presentation and receive an update on previously approved bond projects. Lance Webb, our city engineer. This is going to be a good presentation.
I hope so. Mayor, council, I appreciate the opportunity to provide a update on several of our Go Bond projects. Locate. Here we go. Lance Webb, city engineer here at the City of Mesa. Here to provide you a bond project update. To give you a little bit of context for this presentation, we've had in the last 7 years, these bonds, 2018, 2020, and 2022 and 2024, just to refresh your understanding of what went to the public and what was approved. And I'll touch on each of these projects. The intent of this is to provide an update on those projects that are active, not necessarily focus on those projects that are either completed, but I'll provide a summary for each of these bonds with that. I've also invited several of our departments to come and join me if there are additional questions here on their specific projects to support that. I had added this slide to provide you just a little bit of a context and snapshot and overview for maybe some of the challenges that have been associated with the bonds that have been approved to date by the public. This is intended while construction price indices change among specific materials and such. This is intended to give just a general idea of how when these bonds were approved and how they were impacted financially by some of the inflation that we experienced in the years between primarily 2021 to early 2023. You can see here from this, those projects, and you'll see as I go on in my presentation, those projects that are associated with the 2018 bond had some particular challenges, those that ran on the tail end of that bond. And you'll see that in the presentation. Those most impacted were the 2020 bond, primarily transportation projects. I'll touch on that a little bit. And then a few projects from 2022, not significant. And then more recently, 2024, and touch on those active projects that we're working on. So this is just a high-level summary of the projects associated with the 2018 bond. Most of these, some of these projects you note are completed. A few of these have waited for design. These are the park and culture projects. And then here's a kind of a high-level summary of projects for public safety, which I've noted as 100% complete. I guess I should probably clarify these projects listed as % complete are projects totally closed out. So if they're active and if they're in design, I haven't included those costs. If they're currently in construction, it isn't considered part of that percentage there. And then you'll note the 2018 bond also had a couple library projects. First and foremost, the Gateway Library currently under construction. So this is one of the projects that's design is currently underway. This has kind of been anticipated for some time. It's an 1.5 acre expansion. They're at Countryside Park, a fairly popular dog park that we have here in Mesa. Some of the things there was some coordination here with SRP on this particular project that delayed doing this work, where they have a tailwater line that runs through this east side of this park site where we're looking at the dog park expansion. And then also Signal Butte Park Phase 2. Currently we've had GMP 1 executed. It was primarily for some of the longer lead items associated with this project. And then we have for council consideration today GMP2, which is the remaining work associated with this park, Phase 2. So we anticipate construction to start in the summer of 2025 here and be complete approximately a year from now. This park was much and is much anticipated by many of our residents in the East Mesa. There's a bike park there. You can note the improvements that we're doing, primarily bike parks at different levels and lighting on the main bike trail there. This project currently underway, the pathway, which this is kind of the connection point at Val Vista here, Lehigh Crossing Shared Use Path. The pathway itself is completed and was completed earlier this year. Right now, SRP is relocating electrical power lines to accommodate the tunnel. That started this week. Following that, in September, we'll have one of our JOC contractors out to this project to finalize construction on the tunnel and then be completed later at the tail end of this year. The tunnel does go over the road, under the road, not over.
It'd be good, I might as well just turn this on now at this point. It'd be good in the future to start looking at, as we add cameras to the real-time crime center, getting some eyes on this because this is a pinch point. Just FYI.
So, Mayor and Vice Mayor, we can note that
It's lighted.
as part of that. What's that?
There's lights in it.
There is lighting for this pathway, correct?
We have something similar to this under Ray Road, roughly Eastmark Boulevard. It's kind of the same thing, and I brought up a concern about security there as well, just to make sure everybody's safe when they use it. So,
Well, I think it's an interesting note that this has been covered up for 20-plus years, Lance. I mean, this tunnel.
Yeah,
as-
Mayor, I understand you paid a visit to this tunnel out there too.
I do have a visit to the tunnel.
Okay,
It was like opening up the pyramids.
yeah,
what'd you find?
A great-looking tunnel inside with all the infrastructure available for lighting. And I was excited. I think that was like 2.5 years ago.
about,
But I got called out by an old farmer over there that said, do you know that, because we were thinking about putting in a hybrid pedestrian for the crossing across Val Vista. And he says, there's a tunnel underneath Val Vista. So when Val Vista Bridge was put in back in the day, it got put in. So Kim Fallbeck was able to find all the information on it, and she knew all about it.
yeah, Mayor, we did some investigating based on that discussion with that resident and located this, right? So I think a good ad for the pathway and connection there. This is that last final piece that we're looking to complete, the Lehigh pathway there.
This is a unique pathway I'll just share with you because there's a tunnel underneath Gilbert Road, underneath McDowell, and one will be underneath Val Vista, and someone can get on this shared use path and go all the way out to Granite Reef Dam on the canal or wherever, unobstructed by traffic, a very safe area. So, and with the cameras, I know there's cameras at the McDowell Tunnel. We've asked for that prior to, because of some graffiti issues out there. So that might be necessary in the future.
Okay.
You don't want our very own bubblegum wall?
Okay, I appreciate.
Marketing, it's all how you market it.
And I might just add for District 1, Councilmember Adams, that we had to delete the parking areas for the pathways for the Lehigh shared use path, one at the Val Vista and one at McDowell. So maybe in the future, we could get those into a bond package so we have a parking area. Right now, it's just, I don't know how it's going to be built, but.
Mayor, I appreciate that. That was something that we've de-scoped or to defer, I guess, is probably rather better to note. Those parking areas that were noted here on McDowell and otherwise were deferred, but potentially for a future date.
Yeah, those are trailheads, and because of the cost overruns with the easement issues and the structural issues with the creating the tunnel pathways, we had to defer monies to that.
An additional project that we're currently in progress with is the Eastern Canal Shared Use Path from Brown Road to Broadway Road. Pretty significant pathway along the canal here. We expect that project to be approved and start construction in August of this year, and then completion in spring of 2026. This will kind of work in phases. The signals that you see there noted at the intersections will be completed first, and then we'll follow that with the actual pathway and lighting and such that you've seen in other areas along the canals. And then finally, for our library projects, Gateway Library currently under construction, 28,000 square feet, new library, the first of that type here in our Southeast Valley in 30 years. We're excited to have that one completed here in the fall of 2025 and get that open for the public.
I think he's working on it.
We're working on that. Mayor, Vice Mayor.
November, right?
November is the current date.
Don't let them slow.
I think Mayor and Vice Mayor, I think we're holding that date for sure. This slide has been presented in the past to our past city manager, and to kind of reflect, this is associated with the 2020 transportation bond that was approved. This gives you kind of some context to that volatility of cost with that earlier slide that I provided, and provides some context to what the 162 million anticipated what it would be by today's or 2024's cost at the time this was evaluated and analyzed. Very similar to today, would be 305 million to complete all of those projects.
Mr. Adams.
I'm just thinking out loud here. I recognize the problem because we've all seen some steep increases in the cost of construction materials and so forth. For future planning, and maybe we do this, I don't know, but it doesn't reflect it here. For future planning, should we think about building in a cushion for these increases that we might reasonably expect? Or how do we do that?
Yeah, so Mayor and Councilmember Adams, that's a great question. That's actually something that we've started to do with 2024 and 2022 bonds, in part because of what we experienced with the 2020 bond with transportation.
And Mayor and Council Member, we have historically built in for inflationary costs. It's just, this was unprecedented, right? And so I think to Lance's point, we're now evaluating whether those prior assumptions are still reasonable in the environment that we're in right now, since some of these costs have stuck around. They escalated quickly and they haven't decreased quickly. And so how we evaluate that moving forward will definitely be something we'll talk to council about as we consider future bond issuances.
Sure. Not a criticism, just
Yeah.
more a question, because I think we've seen some really unusual spikes.
It has, and it's been persistent. I mean, we've seen some moderating of the increase, but we certainly haven't returned to pre-COVID cost levels on that.
Right, so Mayor and Councilmember Adams, we do generally build in a contingency with that, but to the note of our city manager, it was unprecedented. It was significant in this case.
So you mean when a sheet of CDX plywood went from $10 to 40, you didn't probably anticipate that?
It made that a little difficult to build.
I
so.
got you. I got you.
Well, I think a good example is the Central Mesa reuse pipeline. Originally, it was probably around $90 million and ended up, what are we at, 210, something like that, 205?
Correct, Mayor. That nearly doubled in terms of cost with the cost of just the different materials, labor, everything associated with that increased significantly.
On the Positive side, though, engineering did a great job when it came to the Gateway Library of acquiring some of the equipment early, particularly the HVAC. And I think had you have not ordered that in advance, we probably would be waiting another year or more before we could open that library. So that was a good job getting ahead of that issue.
Yeah, Mayor, Vice Mayor, we've kind of learned from what's happened with 2021 to 2023 and anticipating that and early GMPs to get things procured early on and lock in costs has been significant in some cases where we see that volatility. So this is kind of a general summary of our 2020 bond projects. As you can note from this particular slide, in some of these cases, you can see some of these projects were constructed. In other cases, they were only taken to design. And in other cases, they were moved to other projects where we kind of experienced that cost increase that we noted before. This slide is in relation to the reimbursement that we would seek associated with this bond for MAG funds. You can see in this case, a handful of these arterial reconstructs were deferred for a future date just due to lack of funding and being unfunded. And in other cases, just taking projects to design only and having construction unfunded.
Lance, so on slide 13 and slide 4, so we have the Eastern Canal shared use path, Broadway Road, Brown Road to Broadway Road on slide 4. It's the fourth item.
On slide 4.
Yeah, and that's on the 2018 bond project, right? And then on the 2020, on slide 13, next to the last, is that a different portion of the shared use path, or?
So Mayor, Councilmember Duff, as part of the 2018 bond and that section of the Eastern Canal, the bond money was only for the traffic signals and all the crossings. So the project that is on slide 4 is just for the crossings of the pathway. And then the project that's displayed here on slide 13 is to actually build the asphalt path and streetlights along the canal for that section.
And Mayor and Councilmember Duff, you'll see in some cases on these slides and summaries where funding from bonds will be combined or moved forward. In the case, I think 2022 is probably a good example. But you see that similar where we've moved that money forward. We have certain projects that we've paired that together to see projects through.
And Mayor, Council, one of the priorities as engineering and transportation has looked at this as well as to maximize those MAG dollars of the Prop 400 dollars that have been allocated to the city. So we want to make sure that there's no money left on the table as they work to close out Prop 400.
So I think to go along with that, back on slide 12, the original $100 million worth of projects that we were going to receive MAG reimbursements for, we were going to receive $62 million worth of reimbursements. We've had to add $72 million worth of our own money and other money. We will get MAG reimbursement on that extra $70 million that will come back to us. So instead of $62 million coming back to us, we're somewhere between $100 and $110 million coming back to us. We just have to get those projects constructed, and then we'll receive those reimbursements and hopefully be able to fund a few more of the projects on the next slide.
Mayor should probably note, like, for this particular slide, the other funding's a little different than the other tables that we have. Other funding, as our Eric has mentioned here, is specifically associated with just local street sales tax and transportation fund. Whereas in the other cases on these tables, they relate to other funding avenues with other departments, maybe utilities or other types of things that support a project. So just wanted to touch on a couple of the projects. Several of these are MAG reimbursement associated. And you'll start to see these. We do reimbursements with MAG quarterly, and you'll start to see a lot of this reimbursement start to happen, which has kind of been a long time coming, going through these cycles of chasing a cost and modifying projects to make that work. One of those projects is the Broadway Road, Mesa Drive to Stapley Drive project that consists of 1.5 miles of roadway improvements, new sidewalk, traffic signals, lighting, other utilities. We are complete with design. We've gone through, I think, 3 different iterations with our contractor. We'll be starting and looking for council approval here just after the break on that particular project.
Lance, I'm sorry, I'm going back on active transportation issues. In 2018, shared use paths were under parks, and then in 2020, they're under transportation. Do we vacillate between the 2 categories according to just what needs to be done? Like a Lehigh Loop in 2018 was under parks, and then a Lehigh Loop in 2020. I assume it was a subsequent phase or something. Was under transportation, so how do we manage that?
Sure. Mayor, Councilmember Duff. So shared use paths and active transportation in the 10 years I've been here have always been under transportation. It was decided in 2018 as part of that bond, as we were looking at these 2 projects that were pathway projects, that they fit under the description of a parks bond. And so that's why they were included in that bond package. They were always been transportations projects to see through and complete and then maintain.
Okay, so just according to how we need to fund, I mean, it sounds like it'll go either way according to how we need to fund them or something like that. And of course, I would be remiss not to say is if we can make any progress on true transportation, shared, active transportation, which means, on the streets, connecting to places and work and employ, that would be wonderful. And I know we've had a meeting on that, and I appreciate your comments on that. But the need for active transportation, for transportation instead of for recreation. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Another project that we're currently working on is the Elliott Road, Sossaman Road to Ellsworth Road. That project consists of 2 miles of roadway improvements in our Southeast Valley. Again, new curb, gutter, sidewalk, medians, traffic signals in that area, and lighting. The design is complete. We're currently working on, and we were here last week to talk about acquisition of easements and acquisition of land to make that work with the federal funding. We're working on that to obtain approvals. We anticipate construction to begin in the fall of 2026 on this. And construction will be completed in summer of 2028.
Did that get moved? I thought it was I thought that was supposed to happen this year.
So,
I can,
Mayor, Vice Mayor, this has always been the schedule for Elliott Road.
Okay.
We've delayed it, or it has a delayed start date because of the associated federal funding. We have a lot of clearances, and then everything has to go through ADOT for approval.
Okay, I'm not going to complain. I think we got Ray Road's under construction, Ellsworth, I think, giving everybody a breather.
We need to have 1 or 2 open roads.
It would be nice to have a road
Yes, we understand.
somewhere
Yes.
that I can drive on. Okay, thank you. That's fine.
Okay.
Ms. Pillsbury.
I was gonna ask the same thing because I feel like it's been so nice having Mesa Drive good, and now it's gonna get torn up again, I guess. I mean, is it just that it crosses over right there? Mesa, not much is happening to Mesa Drive, right? After all that years of Mesa
Yeah,
Drive being torn up?
so Mayor and Council Member Spilsbury, it will connect to that previous phase of Mesa Drive.
So there may be some traffic control back through the intersection, but we had, the limits are actually east of Mesa Drive. We just picked Mesa Drive in the title for the ease. Nobody knew where Le Sueur
Oh,
was.
okay. Makes more sense when
Yeah.
it's Broadway. Okay, perfect.
Well, I think the new construction went east of Mesa Drive and Broadway by a couple of hundred feet, and then terminated, and then they're going to go from that point
It's almost
to
a
Stapley.
quarter mile east of Mesa Drive.
Okay,
Okay.
440 feet, okay.
Yeah.
Somewhere in between, right?
These are Ellsworth Road, germane to Ray Road. This project, you're excited about this one, I can tell. We've come and we spoke about this a little bit last week, but design's complete. We're expecting the construction to start here shortly and then be completed in fall of 2026. We've continued, as I noted last week, working with surrounding groups to inform them with Queen Creek, with the airport, with the sports fields over there, make sure that they're in the know of how we intend to sequence, do this work, and when we expect those traffic control issues in that area.
And I appreciate that the sequencing along Ellsworth Road is going to be helpful. I don't think we've seen that in some of the other construction that was not city-related, and that has caused some significant headache. So having that plan to sequence this so that we could still move traffic. There's still going to be obstructions and some traffic delays. We understand that, but that'll help a lot. And again, just to reiterate, Ray Road is largely in a field, if you will. So until the tie-ins are done, we shouldn't see too much as far as traffic inconvenience. You raised your eyebrows. It makes me nervous.
No, Vice Mayor, that's correct. I think the tie-in points are always the difficult points that we will see some traffic,
so we're
traffic control, and we will coordinate these two projects so they're not both at Ellsworth and Ray at the same time.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then also Ray Road that you alluded to, 1 mile of roadway improvements there, widening the road, actually building the road. So, and we'll anticipate that to be completed in fall of 2026. And then finally, the Val Vista Drive, US 60 to Pueblo. This project consists of widening the road to 3 lanes in each direction, additional left turns, new sidewalk, traffic signals, and lighting. We expect construction to begin. We went to bid on this, I think, early this year, and we'll expect construction to begin in August of 2026 and have it completed in fall of 2026.
Ms. Pillsbury.
I know I was going to ask on this. Is everything done at Greenfield and Southern with our central reuse pipeline? By the time this starts, those intersections won't be overlapping at all?
Yeah, Mayor and Councilmember Spilsbury, the only thing I think we have left in there, and it will hardly be notable, there'll be some minor traffic control in that area to do some pressure testing.
Okay.
Otherwise,
It's mostly done at that intersection?
the intersection itself is done.
Okay.
But coming through and finalizing the pressure testing for that segment of the Central Mesa reuse pipeline.
Okay. I did want to make a comment, a positive comment. Southern Road was just torn up from Gilbert to Lindsay, and it about did me in. And it looks beautiful now, though. It's really, really nice, and I'm very grateful for the condition of the road. And every time people complain to me about it, all I could think about was that they have no idea what's coming because the Val Vista and Southern's going to be much worse than what just happened there. But I think, yeah, I just really appreciate any communication we can get out to these neighborhoods and explain what we're doing because it doesn't make sense to them. So when they're driving around, they're like, these roads were just torn up and now they're tearing them up again. And these idiots, right? Like you guys have heard it all. So I just, just over communicate. Engineering's been great at that. Val Vista and Southern, I brought this up before, but when we were going to do the project a couple of years ago, there was a lot of outreach. So I just want to make sure that outreach, in case anyone's moved in the last 2 years or people forgot, I want to make sure that outreach happens so that people know what to expect, why we're doing it. Val Vista and Southern's, the most dangerous intersection in our city, so it's going to be really good that it's happening, and I'm grateful that it's happening, but it's also going to just be a total nightmare while it's happening, so just to put that out there again, too.
Mayor, Councilmember Spilsbury, we've had a lot of work in the area. Like you noted Gilbert Southern Gilbert, we're happy with that project. It was a cold in place. I think it's the 4th or 5th time we've done it. It's probably been the best product that we've had. And it's kind of been a dance around to make sure that we're getting this stuff addressed. But yeah, Val Vista's going to get its turn here soon. So this is a summary of 2022 bond summaries, primarily just with public safety. You'll notice on this particular slide, I probably should note from the 2018, the carry forward of the 24.7 for fire apparatus replacement. And that's kind of an ongoing effort that we do with our fire department. These 3 fire stations, fire station rebuild, 205, much anticipated by our fire group and many in the area. And then 223 and 224, which will be starting shortly. I'll touch on those. Fire Station 205, again, we're near completion. We're very close on that. So construction will begin here in the fall of 2025. Fall and late summer of 2025 is really busy construction for a lot of the work we're doing. And then construction completion in winter of 2026. Fire Station 223, that design is complete. We anticipate construction to begin in winter of 2026 and construction completion in spring of 27. And Fire Station 224, that design's complete and we expect that project to be executed here shortly and be completed in fall of 2026.
Ms. Spilsbury.
Can you just remind me where 223 and 224 are?
Yeah, Mayor and Councilmember Spilsbury, 223 is at basically 32nd and McDowell on
Next
the
to the
east
Val
side
Vista water
of
treatment
the
plant.
open Mesa property there. And 224 is just north of Elliott on 80th Street on the east side there. Part of the Haas Crossing development. Like
That done just in
tucked
time
there.
to pull up Elliott.
Just in time.
So Lance, can I ask on 223, why are we waiting so long to build it? Do we still have some issues out there on the land?
223, we're evaluating some things on the site currently. I was going to touch on that a little here in a minute with another slide. But yeah, evaluating some different things. That's a site that we're looking at currently with working with our the emergency response center. And so we're evaluating how that might look with utilities, with ingress, egress, driveways, different things like that.
Okay, 223 and the communications center.
Yeah, Mayor, we certainly, and engineering's done a great job of trying to make sure that we're maximizing shared infrastructure for the site. Lance is right, though. The primary driver of a longer delay than we would have liked are just some remediation issues that needed to happen on the site, and they're working through that right now. But that's also given us the benefit of being able to coordinate those shared utilities that could work for both the communications building, which Lance will get to, and also this site as well. So there is a little bit of a silver lining to an unfortunate delay, because we know that area desperately needs faster response, and that means getting this fire station into operation as quickly as possible.
Okay. I'll let District 1 manage that.
Just don't rub that in, Vice Mayor to the Mayor. Yeah.
Right on time.
For public safety training facility, there's a lot of things we've been doing with this. We've started with the design of the parking lot expansion that's currently underway. We've been working with the project team on reviewing needs for the facility. That includes things like personnel assessments, staffing, space planning, other needs, and working on kind of a final layout for this particular site. And then we'll move on to doing some 3D renderings. We're also assessing site utilities, that we have capacity here for things like electrical, water and sewer for this site with some of the expanded use here. And then we'll be comparing those existing to future needs and see what we need to do to accommodate that as part of those improvements.
Mr. Adams.
Okay, we're looking at an expansion. It's not just the parking lot, correct? We're looking at other additions, improvements to the facility. Are those to the facility alone, or are we looking at the technological needs that police might need in their training? Are we looking at facilities and other equipment that fire may need in their training? Or what is the scope of the work?
Yeah, so Mayor, Councilmember Adams, I might invite someone here from our fire and PD to step in. It's been part of this process, but we are basically assessing training facilities, both for our PD, a new facility for our police group, and then for our fire, a renovation of the existing training facility.
So a global look at
Larger global look at what some of the needs are within that area, and it includes other type of space and buildings based on their specific needs.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Thank you for that question. With every facility, we're going to go through and evaluate the technology, whether it's under the hood, working in conjunction with city IT to make sure we have fiber infrastructure to, excuse me, to cover any data we need out there, as well as, especially in a training facility, looking at things like audiovisual needs, other training implements that we would use, and make sure the facilities are set up in a way to properly do that for us.
And Mayor, Councilmember Adams, I'd just say, yeah, to that point, we're really just trying to get the overall site master plan down, right? We're wanting to make sure that this is right-sized for the needs of police, the needs of fire. There's some other, like you said, parking lot expansions. There's some storage expansions long-term. This bond expansion was never intended to be the ultimate final construction on this, it was envisioned for multi-phase. So we were trying to ensure that we would get that master plan in place before we move forward into construction, to make sure that the training facilities for both police and fire are adequate to their future needs on that.
So more detail to come.
More detail to come, that's
Thanks.
right.
Right.
Maybe Chief Lachlan, could you come and share a little bit more of the public safety training facility expansion? Chief Lachlan. I know he loves this to do this.
It's his fault.
You must have been listening to the radio.
I gotta go, sorry.
That's what I used when I was a captain.
I still do.
So the question was about the public safety training facility expansion, just some of the things that you're considering out there.
I think, working with the available bonds and with engineering, we're looking to build some more facilities. What's probably going to happen is we're going to build a facility focused on the police department, and then the fire department will take the areas that the police department is vacating so that we can do the programming appropriately for both areas. So I think what we're looking at, expanded parking, of course, as we expand the capacity out there, which is, I think, as everybody knows, it's been out to the public safety facility for any events. Parking is challenging right now as it is. So we're looking to expand the parking area, and then use some of the bonds to build a new facility for the police department on that site. We'll repurpose the existing police facilities, the admin building areas, the conference room areas, and the, and the multipurpose room areas for the fire use, to basically force multiply by doing all of that.
So Mayor, a lot of these layouts have occurred at this point in terms of what the space needed is, what the facilities that we need to put on the site. That master planning level has happened. We've been meeting with planning and zoning, kind of work through to make sure that we can make the parking, as alluded to by the chief here. That's kind of where we're at this stage. We want to make sure that the space that we have designated meets the needs here for the larger events, parking, and make sure that, like he said, sequencing-wise, we're going to work on building the training facility for PD first, for our police group, and then we'll transition and have our fire group with the renovation on the existing site.
Yes, Mayor, Council, also to that point, the programming was a joint effort with police and fire, and that seemed like what was best and most efficient and timely to do what we could for both our organizations, what everybody needs.
Well, and we know it's a regional training facility as well, so we not only train ourselves, but multi-agencies all throughout the valley here. And so appreciate that. It says a construction time frame to be determined. What, can you give us a time frame? Do you have anything?
Currently, that's kind of where we've sat with this at this point. Like I said, we've moved through initially through a lot of this, the spacing. We're working through the planning and zoning aspects, and then we'll work on sequencing. That's kind of the stage that we're at right now. So there probably will be various dates with that, where we build the police training facility first, and then work on building another more space for our fire and some of those needs, and then relocating. So there's probably various dates associated with that.
Okay. Well, I know parking is a premium out there, so that'd be nice to do that. All right, well, carry on then. Thanks. Any other questions so far?
Also for 2022 is our police headquarters. Many of you are already familiar with this. We will begin here in August of 2025 and expect construction completion here in fall of 2027. Pretty significant remodel here for our police department. And then finally, here's a summary for 2024 bond associated projects. This particular table is associated with our parks projects. And we have started on that effort with several of these, as you can note there. And then also associated here are the public safety projects that we approved in 2024 and the arts and culture projects for 2024. So these are 6 of the locations of the playground renovations that we went to, the projects that we looked to achieve with the 2024 bond. We are near completion for 5 of those 6. We have put out a request for proposal to 2 of our JOC contractors to build those playgrounds. They've worked with playground manufacturers to get for the equivalent space. We felt like these were good projects and working that would provide good visibility for 2024 and getting projects out there for the public to see and experience. We expect that construction to start on these 5. I say 5 out of the 6. Sheep herders is different, but the 5 will start in early fall of 2025. And we expect that completion to be done in summer of 2026. And then also for arts and culture, our Idea Museum, we've already started working with our consultant on this. We have that contract negotiated at this point, and be working on construction to begin in fall of 2026 with renovations in fall of 2028. There's several things we're looking to achieve with this second phase. So expect some of those improvements to probably happen on a sequential basis for the Idea Museum there. Also, the Northeast Mesa Regional Trail System, we just recently, or will be completing here within the next week or 2, feasibility study for this project. What came out of that is there's possibility, depending on where we want to create crossings and connectivity, possibility of working with other jurisdictions, primarily the Flood Control District of Maricopa County, possibly ADOT, and then Los Sendas Development doing some improvements up in that area for safe crossing in that area. One thing to note with this particular project is it is bond funded just for the trailhead. This site, as many are probably aware, is already currently being used. We need to build a trailhead for it, but most of the corridor is currently already set up for access. And there's a few tweaks we'll need to make to the trailhead, but it's a trail that people use today informally, a social trail, if you can call it that. So we'll look to formalize that. Then also, we have selected a consultant on this. We've negotiated a scope and fee with a consultant on these aquatics facilities, Southeast Aquatics Facility and Red Mountain Aquatics Facility. Associated with that Red Mountain is the demo of the Fremont. This is the current layout that we've worked through with our public safety communications facility. Note, we have been working with a designer on this for programming and schematic design on this. This graphic that you see here is the current layout and shows Fire Station 223 in there. I alluded earlier about shared access and utilities and those type of things, looking at access and parking and trying to make full use of that particular site. This is currently that site layout that we have. We expect to go with a selection for a CMAR in December of 2025 and expect construction in January of 2027 to October of 2028. This site, again, is in concept, and this is something that I'm bringing to the council in part as part of this presentation to get feedback on this use of this particular site and inform the council of the layout that we've done here currently.
Mayor and council, I'll just add to Lance's comment on that. When we had initially looked back at siting a communications site years ago, this is one site that was under heavy consideration, and certainly knowing that the access that we want to have there, it's by a water treatment plant, it's beside a fire station, it makes a lot of sense as well for just a location to have a secure communications building like we would have at this site. We're fortunate to have the land, and it just makes a lot of sense on the placement here. And so because of that, we do want to maximize, as Lance said, the shared utilities, the shared access to the site. The mayor had asked us to look at some ways that maybe the public could be engaged in that through a community room or other things, and we're looking at that as well. So we're going through the design, or will be going through the design and shortly, but really try to get best practices. We talked to the Public Safety Committee about this, of making sure that as we design the building, it's really thought with the employees' interest in mind, making sure that mental health, physical health, all that goes along with the first responders in there are taken into consideration. So we're going to look at new centers and take best practices from that as we work to design that, with a robust input from our police and fire side and our public safety support department and labor and others that'll be involved in these discussions.
Good, thank you. Ms. Spilsbury first.
I was just curious if we have plans for the current communication facilities, since those are both two big footprints in two different parts of the city.
The short answer is yes, though exactly how that will play out, Mayor and council members, is still to be determined. But certainly, as we talk about public safety communications, we have to worry about redundancy. So part of that will be looking at backup sites in case there are issues that lead to one site not being available. And also down that 708, that's valuable real estate to our fire department and others, and I know they're already clamoring to have some ideas on potential ways to utilize that space once that's vacated. So
They already hung the new curtains.
yeah, exactly. So we won't be lacking for how to utilize that space moving forward.
Mr. Adams?
I'm not looking for a specific detailed answer here, but I'm wondering, since we're looking at new construction, is this facility designed, is it perhaps what you would call a hardened facility? Will it be resistant to, for lack of any other word, attack?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Adams, I've been part of those discussions in the initial site layout. I've sat in that. That's been a primary focus of discussion as part of that. How access can be obtained, like how safe that is, the buffers that we put in place. That's been a primary focus with this current layout that you see.
Ms. Duff, did you have a question? Okay, good. All right.
Okay, and then finally, as you recall, as part of the 2024 the bond approval, we initially had an indoor recreation center at the site of the Orange Groves there at the southwest corner of Greenfield and McKellips. I think at the time our council asked us to go back and evaluate some different sites, see what other options there are out there. In working with our parks and recreation staff on this, the Countryside Park has been identified as a potential site. This schematic layout was prepared to basically determine the feasibility of making that work. Part of the discussion here with our parks group on this particular site as a potential site was the change in programming that's happened with the ballparks in this particular site and how significantly that's reduced. It has larger space and footprint to add in these things. You can see kind of some paired other improvements with this 2024 bond and then our 2018 bond with the dog park there on the in the hatched green, and then the pickleball courts right there just north of center, east of that entrance. This is one of those sites that we've come to get basically some input and feedback and hear your thoughts on this particular site.
Well, I think moving forward, I know we moved it between the two locations in District 2 based on your input. I think the question is it the right time to build it? And, staffing it in the future, I mean, it's going to cost us monies to do that. So I think the discussion is, Mr. Butler, is this feasibly something that we should do, plan for the future, 28 to 2030, or, for council discussion on this?
So Mayor, Council, like you said, with this being a few years out, I think we'll have a better handle as we get a little bit closer as far as whether the construction timeline and the operations and the ability to operate match up. With that, I think really from council, just having some thoughts or direction, or even the request for further input on location, because then at least we can start the planning. But I think before we would ever move to that construction phase, we would have to get some more assurances about how the overall program's looking, and then of course our ability to operate the facility once constructed.
Ms. Pillsbury?
Yeah, I obviously have a lot of thoughts about this, and we're over our time already, but I absolutely so appreciate staff being willing to look at some other locations. As you know, I was very vocal about making sure we were putting this in the right place and where it was the most needed, and I do feel like it needs to be more south, which is why they did this. And so I love seeing the feasibility, like to see that this actually could work on this site. I also am concerned about my neighborhoods, whether they want this or not right here, and whether they want the big rec center instead of one less baseball field or whatever. Like those fields are used right now for, baseball and soccer and all kinds of things. And so I would want a lot more community input on this before we made any decisions. This is exciting to me. I think this could be a really great location, but again, I don't know. I'm not completely married to it yet. And so, and I do have concerns. I wish Councilmember Goforth was here because we've talked a lot about this, but I have concerns that we just keep building bigger, better, newer, and we're maybe not taking care of some of the facilities that we already have. And there's some needs around the city. And so I, especially when we had to make some really painful cuts in our budget and programs that matter to families, and we were able to push some of those off for Parks and Rec, which I'm really grateful for. And I heard a lot of feedback from neighborhoods, from neighbors, from families in our city that appreciated that. Pushing off the Fremont pool one more year, right? But we're pushing that down the road, and there's going to be hard decisions that have to be made. And so I hesitate to spend millions of dollars here when we could maybe make sure that our facilities and programming stay robust in the areas that they need to be. So I'm not rushing to see this done. I think there needs to be a lot more discussion. I really appreciate the desire of Mr. Brady, really, and staff to recognize that District 2 was lacking in something like this, and the desire to put something like this into District 2 is huge for me. But again, I want to be really cautious moving forward that we do it in the right way.
Mayor, Councilmember Pillsbury noted.
I think we have some time on our side, right, Mr. Butler?
Mr. Mayor, yes. I think those were good comments from Councilmember Spilsbury. What we can do, though, is we can certainly get that community feedback about the site, but concurrently with that, we'll continue to look at those overall, the financial picture that the council member is referring to. And you're right, we certainly have a lot of capital needs in our Parks and Rec department and amenities throughout the city. So I share your concern that we just want to make sure it's the right fit and doesn't come at the expense of maintaining important facilities that we already operate.
Because as we know, we can get these things built, but we then have to run them.
Right.
Which is also very costly as we're looking at the 2 new pools, like who doesn't want a new pool in their neighborhood? But we also then have to fund that and run all those programs. So so the same thing could be said of this rec center, that not that there would be a pool there, but anyways, there's just a lot going into it that I think we need to look at. I do know that this was approved on the bond package, but as we've had discussions before, we're approving categories, right? We're not approving specific projects necessarily.
Mayor, council member, that's definitely fair. I mean, I think we're always in that process of evaluating and reevaluating projects as times change, as situations change, as finances change. So this is certainly one of those, because of the scope and scale of this community center. I think it certainly warrants really strong consideration before we were to move forward with it.
And again, we did extensive outreach, community outreach when we were looking at the bond election, and this wasn't on that for this location. And so I really feel like I have not heard at all from my district or from our city, the residents that live in Mesa, if this is something that looks appealing to them. So I just have no idea. And so this is all really new. So I would like to get a lot more feedback.
And that's completely fair. And we're not in a hurry in that regard. We're not going to rush this process. So I think getting some robust public input from the neighbors and from that area would be important before we could make any final decisions.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Webb, anything else?
Oh, Mayor.
Oh, thank you.
Mayor, I'll just add as we're wrapping up too, one of the things that staff's heard loud and clear from council is just that consistent updates on the status of these bond projects would be really helpful as you're out in the community. So Lance and his team are going to be putting together quarterly updates for you all that will be coming out. And don't worry, Lance has promised it won't be 32 slides in the future. But we want to make sure that you stay informed so that there's some of these are very dynamic projects, as we've seen, like with Fire Station 223. It was on schedule for a different time and then ran into some challenges that have pushed it back. And so we just want to make sure that council's informed so that when you're getting questions from the residents about when's this going to happen, you've stayed up to date on that. So.
One more question.
Ms. Spilsbury.
Oh. Just really quick, I wanted to ask, on slide 24, I noticed the bullet point with public meetings, and I was just curious, are those public meetings just information, like this is what we're doing and this is the timeline? Are we seeking for any input on what they want to see at these parks, or we've already done that and this is what we're doing?
Yeah.
Oh, Andrea's going to come up, I guess. Sorry. I'm just curious, when I saw the public meetings on there, I was just wondering what kind of public meetings these were.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Spilsbury. So the public meetings, we bring the concept of the playground and the concept of any sidewalk improvements, park furniture replacement, and get public feedback. So we bring the concept of the play structure, and then if people have different interests, want to see a different type of component, we can entertain that within that play boundary.
Okay, and it's just essentially the playground part of that we're doing these, or there's, I think there were sidewalks and stuff, right? I don't.
Councilmember Spilsbury, so it's definitely replacing the playground in the existing footprint and adding shade over, putting lights so it can be used at night as well.
Okay, do we get pretty good engagement on these?
We do.
Okay. There's a park, one of these parks is right by my house, around the corner. So I was just curious what kind of input we give the residents on what they want to see at their neighborhood park. So that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any other questions? Mr. Smith, Mr. Butler? Okay, Lance, Andrea, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With that, item 2C is to take action on various board and committee appointments. Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Mr. Adams. Ms. Spilsbury, all in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Next is current events and conferences attended. Council members, do you wish to share anything? Ms. Spilsbury.
I'll just share really quick to give a huge thank you to the City of Mesa for the celebration of freedom in downtown Mesa. Our Parks Department and events staff did an amazing job. That was a really incredible evening. My husband and I volunteered with the Idea Museum and helped kids do art projects, and it was just thousands of people were there. I don't know, I didn't hear a number of how many people came, but I also just had to mention that if you didn't know, Haley Smith in our Parks and Rec department is a singer, and she sang the national anthem, and it was actually so beautiful. I sing, so I'm not just saying this. It was really, really beautiful. She was amazing, and I was so proud of her that we used a City of Mesa employee for that. So it was really a fun night, and so thank you to everyone that was there. We had huge presence from our police department there, and it made it feel really safe, and I just am very grateful for everyone's work to put that event together.
Well, I think Haley's hidden talent is very...
Not hidden anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Secret's out.
Yeah. Mr. Adams?
Just real briefly, I appreciate that reference to Mesa Police. I spent the time, rather than down there, I got to see fireworks from a number of venues while I was riding around with an officer from Red Mountain Station on swing shift. And I'm happy to report it was a nice, according to him, quiet 4th of July Friday night. So, but it's very educational and interesting to me to spend time with our police officers and see what they're dealing with out there. So they do a wonderful job. He put me in, it was one of those crew cab trucks. He made me ride in the bed. No, not really. It was great.
Ms. Duff?
Yes, and I spent the 4th of July, the celebration of freedom, but prior to that, the mayor and I were at the naturalization ceremony at the convention center, in which 99 people and 41 countries became citizens, and it's a very moving event that we do every year at the convention center, and to see them take the oath of their citizenship right here in the center of Mesa is just very meaningful. It's an arduous process. It takes, on average, probably a decade to get your citizenship. So they've gone through a lot to come to that point, and I want to congratulate them and their families and on becoming an American citizen. Oh, and Haley sang the national anthem there as well, and it was perfect. It was gorgeous. It was beautiful. She's amazing, and I think we'll be seeing a lot more of her at city events singing the national anthem, among other things.
Thank you. Mr. Butler, will you share
Well, a little
schedule
bit
of future meetings?
A little bit of music to your ears. Even though I know you'll be very busy, we'll actually begin our council summer break after tonight's meeting, and so we'll be back here on August 14th.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Summers. Mr. Adams, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.